Hey guys, once again, sorry for the appearance, just stymie. I didn't feel like getting made up today. My son's sick. Seemed like everybody else is still kind of in and out of colds this week. And we're still trying to get the stuff cleaned up in the, where we had the leak in the pipe. But anyways, so hello, and if I haven't introduced myself yet, my name is Katie. So I decided this is not going to be scripted, and this is but it's kind of planned out video on what I don't think people actually think about, and also to kind of talk about my my stance on the whole digital remastering and analog all the way through. I do think like the unsung heroes in the music industry are the producers, the sound engineers, the remasters, that especially when it comes to like vinyl. Vinyl, when it's being produced and gets laid on that vinyl, is totally different from when they're putting it onto a CD. And this is coming about because me and my husband had a discussion yesterday because of the name of the channel. Phono killed the Phono killed the digital store. It's not that I honestly believe that analog is better. I don't completely think that. I like analog in the sense that that I like the older records when they're analog, and I tend to normally stay away from digital remasters of those until recent times, because I didn't think they sounded great in the past, but I think it's just because production-wise it was just laid on a piece of vinyl and just like, no artistry into it, nothing. However, I mean, there is a true artistry to it, and this is the reason why when I look at records sometimes, and I always seem to look through them and actually look at the production people and the engineers and the masters, I seem to find almost the same type of people in that category. For instance, one moment. And I'm going to bring up something I'm unsure of on this one, but if anybody knows, they can correct me down in the comments. If not, I'm going to look it up myself sometime. But the most famous one that we know of, Led Zeppelin 2, the Robert Ludwig pressing. Other than the fact that this is technically the official first run of it, I think if there ever was a golden ear, it's him. Because yes, the bass is in your face, but nothing suffers for it. And usually, sometimes if a frequency is brought out more, something suffers for it, or even that frequency itself suffers for it. So I don't think the mids, I don't think the highs, I don't think anything on this album suffers from the bass being where it's at. Now, I have a remastered album from the 90s. Foo Fighters, Color and Shape. Now, I'm not completely sure about this, but look at the masters' names. Right there. I'm thinking Bob Ludwig is Robert Ludwig, because obviously Bob being short for Robert, right? So, and I do absolutely love the sound quality of this album. So, like, obviously, like I said, I do tend to look for Robert Ludwig pressings. Early albums, like Led Zeppelin 2, you can usually look in the dead wax, like I've said in one of my earlier videos, and find RL. And RL is going to be your marker to know that's probably Ludwig. That's Robert Ludwig. I have some other albums that he's mastered that I like, but not as much as I would say these two. And as I said, I'm unsure about the Bob Ludwig on this one because it was mastered in 2011, or remastered in 2011. I believe. However, it might have been mastered and just repressed, or mastered back in the 90s and repressed in 2011. I mean, but seeing how Ludwig has been around since like the 70s, it's kind of like, I don't know. Now, I'm going to bring up another sort of controversial thing that I missed out on that was like last year or the year before, where I think some guy, I'm not going to bring up the channel because I don't care for his channel, but I don't want to detract from him, you know, because obviously he believed he was doing what was right, although I think he went a dirty way around it, okay? So let's remember, oops. Let's think back about a year or so ago when the guy from the channel I'm talking about was interviewing Mobile Fidelity about their one-steps. I have two one-steps right here. Technically, this wasn't probably the best source to take it from, although it sounds great. And still crazy after all these years. If you get the original, it sounds bright. And this is toned down compared to how bright it sounds. And sounding bright, I mean, it's just high frequencies and it sort of gives your ear fatigue. But I kind of feel like, while these are good examples of probably not technically getting the best source material because of how they were produced in the 70s, in the 80s, and so forth and so on, they probably had no choice but to stick it digitally, but to record it and put it and did some digital remastering. And like Weezer, my limited edition Mobile Fidelity one, I will admit that on the LP120 it sounded bright, and one of my friends brought it up, and I stuck it on the SL1200. I thought it sounded okay, and it sounded decent. However, Weezer 30 sounds so much better, and that's mainly because it was pressed in half speed at Abbey Road, and those half speed Abbey Roads, and don't laugh at me for this one, I mean, they're really starting to get quite a bit of name for themselves, and they do sound great. The whole idea behind that too is that when the mother disc and the discs that are pressing the vinyl are made, when the grooves are put in them, they have to be spun at 33.5 or 45 RPM. But with half speed, it's spun at half the speed of the speed you'd be playing at. Hence, I guess they don't make as many mistakes, and because it takes its time and it's slower, you get more definition to the music. And I do agree that I do hear it in, I think I have like Police's Greatest Hits back here that's at half speed. It's good. Like I said, Weezer 30 is half speed, and you definitely can tell the difference. If you're ever questioning the price of a half speed over like maybe something normal, go ahead and pay the extra stuff if you actually care about sound. You know, that you hear it. We'll go into these other albums in a minute. But the thing is, it's with production-wise, there's a real art to it. And I believe that when like CDs and digital kind of came into the mix, people just kind of forgot about it and just slapped whatever onto a CD or onto an album. Yeah, for instance, The Wall. The CD copy I have of The Wall is flat, lifeless, and truly, I just couldn't love it. And then I found a $20 used copy of The Wall. And I mean, this is like the total definition of where analog is absolutely better than that CD. Because this has live, I mean, I actually did not like The Wall until I listened to it on vinyl. And there are some things that I feel the same about that too. And as I'm going into this too, is that my husband is like pressing really hard about I can't slag off that digital, and our hearing is in digital, and I know physics, I know human physiology and stuff like that, and I'm like, I understand that, but we're also talking about a physical representation of a sound wave is pressed into a piece of vinyl, and that's what we're hearing. So now I've been tasked with looking into how I could take one of my vinyls, record it onto a digital file, and then, let's say, engineer it, master it, whatever, to sound exactly the way I would hear it on that piece of vinyl in that digital file. That is going to be that's going to take some time, though, because obviously it's something I'm going to have to learn, one. And two, I'm going to need to figure out if I need any extra hardware or extra software that's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. Or maybe even look on Reverb, I think it's called. So, because this is telling me that I can't, it's not a fair comparison for me to take a CD that somebody else has done with a record. And he's right. He is absolutely right, because, it really depends on what year that album was pressed, who did it, if they're really going to pay attention to the mastery of it. The reason why I'm not mad at Mobile Fidelity is I understand it. I think, if you're taking a 30-year-old analog tape, there's going to be some things missing from it. It depends on how well it was cared for and kept over the years. And you can't guarantee that thing is going to be listening quality. So, yeah, you're probably going to have to digitalize it a bit. However, there's a mastery and an art to production and reproducing that. I think they took their time to do that. Hence the reason why so many people got mad about it, because they were lied to by omission, right? But that's the thing, is that I kind of also understand that side too, that the reason why people are getting mad about the digital quality of some things is that in the very beginning, I have some albums that were from the very beginning that were digitally remastered of, like, not so much the Beatles, they're not that bad. However, I do think the ones I have that were digitally remastered that aren't like the anthology or anything that Giles Martin has done pales in comparison to like the mono pressings from the UK that are within like the first couple runs. But that's because that was a fresh analog tape, and everything was there. It was spotless. But then again, also every time you run that tape, you are going to lose some information. You're going, and throughout the years, you're going to lose some information. Reason why you have to bring in digital. However, the person who's doing that has to understand what they're doing to make it sound good and make it listenable to the audiophiles out there. So yes, however, while I named this channel Phono Killed the Digital Star, I have nothing against digital. I just prefer records over a CD. Maybe it's because I like watching them. Maybe I like the whole personal connection you have to have, that you stand up, go turn it, flip it, whatever, and you have to sit there actively listening kind of thing. But yeah, I prefer records over a CD because of that. And there's nothing wrong with digital. I stream music to figure out if I want to listen to it or not. And I will admit that with streaming, you do kind of have to think about things. Like, if you think that something's going to sound good on vinyl, but yet it leaves things to be desired within it in the streaming world, it's probably going to sound better on vinyl, probably. Like Molly Birch, I prefer her singing live or on vinyl. The CDs are okay too, but streaming just doesn't do her justice, doesn't really help, and I just really could not get into her music until I heard her live and bought the vinyls. And now I like it. I like the album I bought. I like the album that was made after it. Like the album I bought that I really got into from her was produced by Tennis. My favorite band. One of my favorite bands, I should say, because I'm a diehard Beatles fan. And the second one was produced by Wild Nothings, and I started liking Wild Nothings because of that album. But that's the thing, too, is that these people are going for that analog sound, and I don't know if their production is completely like analog all the way through. However, I would think that maybe the beginning of their production is probably analog, and then whatever, techniques to keep it sounding good and to be able to preserve it better than you could on that analog tape, So, like I said, I'm unsure of their production, but I love the sound on their records. I love the production sound on other people's that they produced records too. So, like I said, hint, hint, I tend to pick up albums with the same producers, the same engineers, same masters. I may even look them out. I may even search for them because I know I like the sound quality that they put into the production of it. So, for instance, let me see real quick. Okay, Sleeper. This is the original 1996 EP pressing of it, and this is like the special edition 2001. But I don't know if this was just like a repressing or if they reproduced it and remastered it. But, I mean, maybe they didn't even have to. Maybe it was already digitally mastered before. But the producer and the engineer are the same, which is Stephen Street and John Smith. But, yeah, they have to have just taken a digital file, and they sound great. This sounds awesome. This sounds just as good, although it doesn't have the places that get stuck for me on there. So, like I said, that is the fact that whoever mastered it, whoever produced it, like the people I've said, have paid attention to the artistry of it and made it sound good. Here's another album that was produced by Stephen Street and produced and engineered. I do like. This one was put out by Analog Spark, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think most of this was analogly done, so analog tapes, because I believe in the very early 90s, people were still doing analog recording and then digitalizing it. And let's see, I did see it on here. Another Stephen Street. If you notice, they're all Britpop bands or bands from Ireland or the UK. Obviously, he was based probably in London. I do think this one was done. Yeah, this one was done in Abbey Road too. But this was done in like, it was a reissue of a 1993 album in 2012. If you've not listened to this one yet, for fans, I like it. I know it was hard to find for a little bit, so then we'll talk about the last one. Well, I'll talk about the last one I'm going to bring up, but this one here too. So the guy that produced these is named Steve Lillywhite. I love the production on this one. It sounds fantastic. But also this one, how I'm not really like impressed by it, but I have to think about the fact that he probably didn't really have the greatest source material, the Laws. Steve Lillywhite did this as well. So, like I said, it's not one of those like drop dead gorgeous sounding albums, but I have to think about it for a minute that the source material probably wasn't that great because they only put out one album and the band dissolved before they could even make it big. So, you know. Now, this is another one I want to talk about. I generally prefer 12-inch 45 RPM records because I think they sound better. However, there is that added bonus of having to get up and flip it like every 3 songs or so. But this album, I think, is beautiful. It's a Vinyl Me Please, the VMP box subscription services, and you can buy albums of them. This one routinely goes out of stock, but it's Fiona Apple's Title. It was in stock yesterday when I went and took advantage of their Black Friday sale. So it's like up to 30 to 70% off or something like that on albums. There are a few albums that were like $20 that were like from Carolyn Rose and stuff like that. However, this was in stock, and I think it was like $40 or down to 36, 37. And then if you spent to 125 excluding box sets, you could put a code in and get an extra 25% off your whole order. But I've ordered another copy of this because this copy is a bit worn out, skips in a few places. I mean, it might even just take me ultrasonically cleaning it, but I love this album so much that I want to make sure I have an extra copy for when, if I have any problems with it, I'll have the extra copy. But it was produced by Andrew Slater. I don't know, like, sound engineers and such yet on these. I mean, I probably would have to look that up on like the VMP site. And please forgive me, I don't have my glasses, so I might have to squint when I'm looking at this. Usually, if you can't find it on a cover somewhere or in the dead wax, which, I mean, I kind of think that went out of favor, you could probably usually find what you're looking for behind the lyrics in most booklets or track listing on the cover usually. So, as you can see, that, I mean, I think the people that do the work in the studio, of the recording, of the engineering, the mastering, the production of albums, are the unsung heroes. I mean, you could literally say that George Martin was like the 5th Beatle, or 6th Beatle, or even, I'm going to go ahead and call him the 5th, because Brian Epstein was the 6th Beatle. The Beatles would not have been anything without Brian Epstein, and they would not have been anything without how George Martin decided to record them. For instance, when they decided to record them for Please Please Me, they did it in one day. They did it in one day. Not only that, I believe I've read that he set them up as if they were going to be doing their stage show, which was like I've never thought of to do in the studio, but he set them up like they were doing their stage show. And I really feel like production-wise and the albums, however the early Beatles may sound to you, and I mean, even I kind of, yeah, but I love them for the historical reasoning. If you listen from Please Please Me all the way to Let It Be. Sorry, my brain is not working today. Let It Be. You can definitely hear that progression of like their own artistry as a group, as musicians, growing into what they were given. And I mean, you have to appreciate that about that. They wanted to grow as musicians. That it's not, and like their wit, their sense of humor, their personalities are the things that sold them to the sound engineers, and the fact that they were music geeks probably. But the point being is that George Martin had this wonderful idea to set them up as if they were doing their stage show. And I honestly feel like those early albums, the energy of it being like a stage show kind of comes through. And that is what I like about them, is that it pulls you in and makes you want to listen to them, even though you know what I mean? It's like you kind of get pulled into like wanting to listen to it, even though you may or may not like it completely, as in like it's not your type of music, or you can consider them a boy band or the first boy band ever. But the Beatles broke a lot of ground. I mean, George Martin's recording techniques, the fact that Brian Epstein just pushed to get them out the way they were, and the boys themselves, when, you know, wanting to mess around with sound equipment, production, engineering, and even the fact that Paul and John's songwriting, I mean, it had never been heard of that an album would contain nearly 80% of the artist's own songs, not even, and sometimes not even 1%, or 10%, you know what I mean? They had this set rule of like they had their songwriters, and the song of the songwriters just got passed around by each group. And whoever did it better got the hit. So, I mean, this is the reason why the Beatles were so different. And you've got to appreciate where this all kind of evolved from. And, well, I almost made this a half an hour. Okay, I didn't mean to make it that long, but you get my point. So, anyways, I will probably let you guys know where it's going to go if I'm going to actually venture into this whole side of things. I mean, I am interested because there is an artistry to it, but I do think it's going to take another like year or two before I can really fully get into it, although I might get into it sooner. Maybe I might ask for some money for Christmas to put towards this stuff, or my birthday and Christmas kind of thing, because my husband's right. If I'm going to do a YouTube channel, I need to understand what I'm talking about a bit more. And I mean, I kind of do, and I kind of don't. So, as I said, I feel like the sound engineers, the producers, the masters, the people that are behind the scenes are your unsung heroes on most of these things. Because, I mean, for instance, let's say that The Wall, the album I'm saying was dead and flat on CD, that's your raw file. Obviously, somebody just threw it on to a CD and put it out, and people bought it because it was Pink Floyd. And this is where I think the analog people argument stands true, is the fact that those earlier pressings that of digital remastered vinyl, it does sound like somebody just threw it on a piece of vinyl. Nobody took the time to understand what they were doing, except for the people that were producing it and mastering it in the 70s. They understood the art behind it. So this is where the point is, I'm not going to be an a-hole about this. However, I do think some of the people that were analog were being... I mean, I get it, guys. I do. But let's not kill the hobby before we can even keep it going. So anyways, guys, I'm sorry for making this a long video, and it was kind of planned out, but not. So as I said, I will let you know how things go with me and this whole new project of mine. And it's obvious I'm probably not going to be getting an amp and passive speakers anytime soon, because that's my next deal with this all. And but I am happy with the sound my system makes, so I don't need to unless something catastrophically goes wrong with my speakers. But I hope this kind of gives you an idea that if you get an album and you really love the sound quality, look for the producer, look for the sound engineers, look for the masters. Then go search for them when you're out buying records. And I'll guarantee you, if a record's been digitally remastered, and the person knows what they're doing, that sound quality will be great. Will be fine. Abbey Road's half-speed sound quality, awesome. And I actually prefer those over the 45s for convenience of not having to get up. But I also like 12-inch 45 RPM records. They sound great. So I've taken way too much of your time up. So bye. I hope to see you again. I will, like I said, that Weezer unboxing, if you can get it up to 100 views, I will put the video out for Weezer behind the band, behind the music, as soon as possible after that, as a celebration. Come on, guys. By the end of this week, please. Because I kind of want to give that to you next week. And I will see you next time. Like, subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye.